He confirmed it. That is the part nobody expected. Kash Patel sat in front of the entire Senate Judiciary Committee, under oath, on camera, and confirmed his own words. Not after a long fight, not after a legal battle. He confirmed them in one sentence. "Senator, that's a partial quotation, but it's correct in part." 3 seconds of silence followed, because everyone in that room understood what had just happened. The FBI director had just admitted, on the permanent congressional record, that he had publicly threatened to come after journalists and government officials, criminally or civilly. His words, his confirmation. And Senator Sheldon Whitehouse had not even reached the second document yet. Watch this until the end. Because what Whitehouse built in that chamber was not a single damaging moment. It was a structured case, document by document, quote by quote. And Kash Patel had no answer for any of it. If you are new here, subscribe now and turn on notifications. Because what happened in this hearing is the kind of record that does not disappear. And the documents Whitehouse put on the table are still there. Before we get to the moment itself, you need to understand who walked into that room. Sheldon Whitehouse is not a politician who performs for cameras. Before the Senate, he served as Attorney General of Rhode Island, then as a United States Attorney. Years of building prosecutorial cases in actual courts, not committee rooms. When Whitehouse sits down at a hearing, he has done the preparation beforehand, not talking points, documents, exact quotes, dates, names, judicial findings, the work that takes weeks to assemble and minutes to deliver. That is the difference between a senator asking questions and a former prosecutor making a record. Kash Patel came in prepared for the hearing he expected. Republican members would defend him. Democratic members would press on controversial decisions. He had navigated that dynamic before. He had answers for it. What he did not have answers for was a single sheet of paper sitting face up on Whitehouse's desk. His own words, pulled from his own public statements. The ones he had said freely, on record, outside of any congressional chamber, when he believed there would be no formal consequences. Whitehouse did not open with Patel. That was deliberate. He opened with the political moment. January 6th. The Capitol corridors, colleagues running, a Republican colleague shouting that rioters should be shot, senators returning to their constitutional duties through hallways cleared by SWAT teams. He described what he had witnessed personally, and then he made a point that landed quietly but did not move. For a significant period after that day, not a single senator from either party publicly called for pardoning the people involved. A Republican colleague called the idea hard to believe. J. D. Vance said violent rioters should not be pardoned. Jim Jordan said any pardons should be strictly limited to those who had not committed violence. Then came the pardons, all 1,500. More than 600 of those individuals had physically attacked Capitol Police officers. They were released. Then a separate pardon, one that received far less attention. A dark web operator sentenced to life in prison for running an illegal drug marketplace. A person accused of soliciting murders for hire. That pardon came too. Whitehouse said one sentence about it. Every time you think this administration would not go that far, rethink that. He was not editorializing. He was establishing context, preparing the committee for what he was about to put on the record. Then Whitehouse did something that cut through every prepared defense in the room. He did not quote Democrats. He did not cite opposition research or liberal commentary. He read into the record what Republicans had said, people who had worked alongside Patel, people who had supervised him, people who had sat in the same rooms and watched how he operated. Former Attorney General Bill Barr, a Trump loyalist with decades of law enforcement credibility, said Patel had virtually no experience that would qualify him for the role. Barr added that Patel would never command the respect required to run the Bureau's day-to-day operations. Former CIA Director Gina Haspel, also a Trump appointee, was reported to have threatened to resign rather than allow Patel to serve beneath her. John Bolton, Trump's own former national security advisor, stated that he did not believe Patel was qualified for the positions he had been given and that he had been forced to hire him. Then Whitehouse read from Trump's own deputy national security advisor, the person who had been Patel's direct supervisor inside the administration. The words were precise, and he read them carefully. His ideas are ludicrous. He is absolutely unqualified for this job. He is untrustworthy, and it is an absolute disgrace to even consider an individual of this nature. Whitehouse paused after that. These were not critics. These were not political opponents. These were senior officials from the same administration that had nominated Patel to lead the FBI. Every single one of them had gone on the record against him. Then Whitehouse turned to what Patel had said in his own voice. The quote was specific. "We will go out and find the conspirators not just in government, but in the media. We are going to come after you, whether it is criminally or civilly." Whitehouse looked at Patel. Is that a correct quotation? 3 options: deny the words, deny the context, or confirm. Patel chose a 4th path that accomplished none of those things. Senator, that's a partial quotation, but it's correct in part, not misrepresented, not taken out of context, correct in part. The threat was confirmed, under oath, in front of cameras, as part of the permanent congressional record. The FBI director had just acknowledged that he had publicly stated his intention to pursue journalists and government officials he considered enemies through criminal or civil action. Whitehouse moved on without pausing. He raised a video, a threatening clip that had circulated publicly. He asked Patel directly whether the account reposting it at the top of the page was his. Patel said he had nothing to do with creating the content. Whitehouse asked again, "Is that you reposting it?" "Yes," Patel confirmed. That was him. He had reposted it. Both the confirmed quote and the confirmed repost now sat in the record together. Think about what that combination means in practice. The FBI director is the person responsible for protecting journalists from threats, for protecting government officials from intimidation, for enforcing the laws that exist specifically to make those protections real. And sitting in that chair, on that day, he confirmed that he had publicly threatened to pursue journalists criminally or civilly. Then confirmed separately that he had personally amplified threatening content targeting individuals he considered opponents. Not as a private citizen with no institutional power, as the sitting director of the most powerful federal law enforcement agency in the country. Whitehouse did not editorialize about that combination. He placed both items in the record and allowed the committee to draw its own conclusions. That restraint carried its own weight, because facts placed in sequence do not require commentary. They require only that someone is paying attention. Whitehouse then addressed a specific public claim Patel had made, that FBI agents had been responsible for the violence on January 6th. Beyond a reasonable doubt, Patel had said publicly. The Inspector General of the Department of Justice investigated that claim directly. The conclusion was that it was false. Whitehouse stated that finding plainly, then moved to Patel's public calls to impeach federal judges who had ruled against the current administration. Patel's own language for those judges: political terrorists. Each point placed on the record in sequence. No editorializing, no pausing for effect between them. State the fact, give Patel the opportunity to respond, confirm what he confirms, move immediately to the next. The method was deliberate. This was not an attempt to produce a single damaging exchange. This was the construction of a record. The accumulation itself was the argument. Then Whitehouse produced what may have been the sharpest piece of evidence in the entire session. Not a quote from a podcast, not a second-hand characterization, a written finding from a sitting federal judge. Patel had appeared as a witness in a Colorado federal court, presiding over a case connected to the previous administration. That judge had reviewed Patel's testimony and committed a conclusion to writing. The judge determined that Patel was not a credible witness. The written assessment stated that his testimony was not only illogical, but completely devoid of any evidence in the record. Whitehouse read those words at a deliberate pace and without additional commentary. Not a credible witness. illogical, completely devoid of any evidence in the record. A federal judge's written finding about sworn testimony delivered in an actual court of law. Whitehouse let the committee sit with it. Then he said what the entire session had been building toward. There is an unfathomable difference, he told the committee, between the image being constructed around this man in this room and what he has demonstrably done and said when no one was managing his presentation. 4 words followed. He spoke them quietly. Conduct shows character, and he let them stand without elaboration. Whitehouse closed with something that extended beyond the hearing itself. He said that studying what has occurred in other countries and other political periods reveals a recognizable pattern in how individuals placed at the head of security services tend to behave when they serve leaders who demand total loyalty rather than independent judgment. He named the qualities that tend to define those individuals: vengeful, grandiose, intemperate, blindly loyal to whoever holds power, servile, unwilling to push back, unwilling to draw lines, unwilling to say no. Whitehouse said the documented record of Patel's own public conduct raised those same concerns. He was not making a direct accusation. He was drawing a parallel, placing it explicitly before his colleagues, and asking them to weigh it before casting their votes. The room was quiet when he finished. Patel sat at the witness table and said nothing. When the confirmation votes were counted, 2 Republicans separated from their party, Susan Collins of Maine and Lisa Murkowski of Alaska. Collins wrote in a formal statement that a compelling need exists for FBI leadership that is genuinely apolitical. Murkowski's stated concerns came directly from Patel's own documented political conduct prior to his nomination. They were the only 2 Republicans willing to place that on the record. That number matters. Not because 2 votes changed the outcome. They did not. Patel was confirmed, but because of what it took to produce even 2 Republican defections. Collins and Murkowski did not cite anonymous concerns or vague reservations. They cited the documented record, the public statements, the confirmed quotes, the judicial finding, the same materials Whitehouse had placed before the committee, which means the evidence was sufficient to move 2 members of the opposition party. In a political environment where that almost never happens. The enemies list Whitehouse referenced during the hearing, documented in a book Patel published under the title Government Gangsters, named approximately 60 individuals Patel had identified as targets. By the time of the hearing, Whitehouse estimated that Patel had already taken some form of documented adverse action against 20 of them. The public threat against journalists was never retracted, never qualified, never walked back. And the federal judge's written assessment, not a credible witness, illogical, completely devoid of any evidence in the record, is now part of the permanent file of the man currently running the Federal Bureau of Investigation. That finding does not expire. It does not get revised. It exists in the record alongside every piece of testimony Patel has given and will give going forward. Whitehouse did not need a dramatic confrontation to make that case. He needed verified quotes, a judicial finding, and the patience to place them on the record in sequence. Kash Patel confirmed his own words. A federal judge had already determined those words came from a witness who was not credible, and the gap between the 2 is where the argument lives. Conduct shows character. 4 words. The rest of the record speaks for itself.